Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? Is this a good event so far? Well, let's hope things do not take a turn for the worse with this presentation. Very excited to be here and to talk about GA4, a little bit about the evolution of analytics and where we are going. And this presentation, like I think any good presentation, is going to start with the story of lobsters. Any lobsters here? Any lobsters lovers here? Do people like lobsters, enjoy lobsters? Wonderful. So the story takes us back to the year 2005. And in year 2005, a new product was being used. It was Google AdWords. The product went through different naming changes. The product has evolved, still with us obviously here today, because Google Ads. But in 2005, something very interesting happened. In 2005, somebody ran a campaign on Google AdWords, and that somebody was a person who used to work for a company that would ship lobsters. So somebody clicked on an ad, interested in buying lobsters, and about 7 days later, lobsters arrived at their house. Lobsters were probably very surprised about the whole experiment, and here we are, almost 20 years later, all enjoying what Google ecosystem is able to offer us. So let's take a look at overall history of analytics and the journey that we've been on. So things kind of got started in 2005, and the first iteration of Google Analytics was a product not actually by Google, it was Urchin, to those who might remember. And Urchin was a web analytics product that later was acquired by Google, and it was one of the first iterations of digital analytics. I remember in about year 2005 or 2004, my first analytics job. I was 15 years old, and I was actually using web trends. To those who might remember that platform, and printing stats about how different websites were performing, right? So quite some time ago. Then in 2007, we are introduced to classic analytics, and iPhone is introduced. And on Monday, what was it, iPhone 16 that was introduced? Thus, with the thinnest bezel, that's what I got out of it, right? The most important improvement. And then we had Google Analytics 360. That was introduced in 2012. Before Universal Analytics, we also had Google Analytics Premium, which was the first version of paid Google Analytics. In 2015, mobile queries overtake desktop. 2016, Firebase was launched. 2018, Google Analytics 4. First, it was called Web and App. In fact, the first iteration or the first version of the book that we wrote, it did actually have Web plus App, because that was the original name, and then it was rebranded to Google Analytics 4. Google Analytics 4 moves out of beta, and in 2024, this important day, AdTech Unlocked, basically all of you are part of digital analytics history. And then the questions, well, in 2025, what is going to happen next? How will this impact the world of analytics measurement when users will have user choice in Google Chrome, and that will impact, obviously, how information is being collected. Not a bad 19, 20 years. Now, over the past few years, when Google Analytics 4 evolved, there were many questions that we had to answer through the transition of why are we going through this GA4, why is it needed? Well, Google Analytics 4 really promised to address a number of complex business challenges that I think many of us in the analytics space have encountered. One was user behavior happens across multiple devices. How many of you have one device, whether it's a laptop or a phone? How many of you have two devices? How many of you have an iPad? 3 devices. How many have 4 devices? 5? Okay, talk to me after dinner. I'm just curious. Right? And so the question is, well, how do we actually measure the consumer journey across those devices? So that was the first one. The second one was, look, as much as all of us like analytics, analytics is kind of the study in history, right? Let's take a look at what happened on our website over the past months, over the past quarter. But that's somewhat boring, right? Wouldn't you agree? all of us get more excited looking at what's going to happen in the future. We want to know, based on the data that we've been collecting over the past months, tell me what I should be planning or what I should be encountering over the next week, over the next months. So there was a need for better predictive analytics. Customer journey, right? So how do we really better understand customer journey and media activation? So based on everything that we are collecting about consumers, how can we activate that information for targeting? And in essence, this is what GA4 promised, and why today we'll talk about how GA4 is becoming really a marketing powerhouse, or how it can be for your organization. And we'll talk about it from three different sides. Number one is we'll talk about deriving marketing insights, right? So how can we actually better analyze data that we are collecting? The second one, we'll talk about targeting, and we'll talk about activation. And then lastly, how do we fuel stronger marketing performance? How do we accomplish better results with at least the same budget? But in most organizations, there is always a request, hey, we need to produce the same results with lower budgets. How many of us heard that before? So I will talk about this as well. So first, let's talk about deriving meaningful insights with analytics. And GA4 really does it in a couple of ways. As we've discussed, number one is measuring different kinds of data, right? Because of the event model, it can collect data from kiosk as user interacts with an application, mobile app, or a desktop. And because of that, you can have a unified user journey across your website and apps, and leveraging Google AI to surface new insights. So let's spend a moment looking at actually how data collection works, because it is rather important, right? So first one is exclusive to GA4. We have web data and we have app data. They're collected. But outside of information that we can natively collect, we can also add offline data and bring it into Google Analytics 4, such as offline data. So for example, if you operate a store, you can actually tie the data from online to the store sale data, so you can see the complete journey. But the question is, well, this is great, but what happens when the user does not want to be tracked? What happens if the user opts out? Privacy is not a does with performance, and so we have the second component, right? So here we might have an incomplete view of user journey due to cookie loss. And at this point, probably after 3, 4, 5 sessions that we already had, we know that this is going to happen. Whether it's going to be 30%, 40%, 50%, we can take bets, but ultimately nobody really knows. But we do know that that's going to happen. And so in this case, what GA4 helps us do is leveraging Google's modeling capabilities. We kind of help us fill in those blanks, right, where we do not have users' consent, so we cannot collect information about them. But through Google modeling capabilities, we can fill in the gap, and we can have a much better true understanding of what is going on across our digital properties, hence privacy-safe and future-focused analytics solution. And obviously, very robust reporting capabilities where we understand cross-platform journey, where we understand in a very timely and very much real-time fashion what is happening on the website right now and how consumers are interacting. And customize the individual reports based on the information, so you can slice, dice data any way you want. And certainly, if you use Google Analytics 4 360, there are also a number of features that are available only for you. Custom user roles, rover properties, and other sub-properties. And guess what else Google Analytics 4 has? It has AI. Well, maybe it's probably even more accurate to say it always had AI, but now AI started to get marketed even more. And so we have very robust AI capabilities where we can automatically surface insights. It actually can tell you how to possibly interpret the data, what to make of it, analyzing user behavior over customer lifetime, and which we'll come back to, which is quite important, right? Because a lot of times what happens, especially we are about to enter that holiday season, where before the day after Thanksgiving, right? We have Black Friday, and every company, it seems like, is dying to get our attention. And what happens is, a lot of times, organizations tend to overpay for the conversion, overpay for the sale, in hopes that you will stay with them over a long period of time, and that actually does not always happen. A lot of times, we tend to overpay for that one-time sale, for one-time conversion, versus actually acquiring a long-term customer. So we can fix that. And it can obviously help us detect anomalies within the data. So now that we have all of the information available to us because we collected it in a privacy and compliant fashion, the question is, great. So what can we do with this information? What type of audiences we can create, and how can we target people better? Well, talking about targeting has not been always as robust as what it is right now. Can anyone guess what this is?
First banner ad.
What's that?
First banner ad.
Exactly right. That was the first banner ad. Can you guess by what company it is?
Wired.
It's not. It was, I think, on the Wired website. But the reason you do not see the company logo is because the company was embarrassed by the ad. And they said, you know what, we don't actually know if the ad is going to work or not. So we are not going to have our logo on the ad. But guess what? Ad worked. What is the typical click-through rate these days for banner advertisements? 0.1 to 0.3%. Can you guess what this masterpiece had of a conversion rate or click-through rate?
20%.
We have 20. Anyone else? 80%? Somewhere in between, right? The world's first banner ad, it was for AT&T, as we discussed, October 1994. And 44%. Pretty awesome. Now, as the financial advisors would say, past performance does not correlate with the future performance. So I can't quite promise the same thing with GA4. But certainly, we can talk about personalization of ads based on information that we are collecting about our consumers. And there are a couple of advantages or reasons why you might want to do it right within GA4. When you build audiences in GA4, there are a couple of things that are very important. One is you have an automatic sync. So when your Google Ads and GA4 are linked, you can create audiences in GA4 based on information that you are collecting about consumers. And that information is automatically shared with all of your media accounts, not just Google Ads, but other platforms such as DV360. Automatic refresh. Obviously, your data in GA4 is not static because we continue to collect more and more information about our consumers. So the data changes, it evolves. And as it does, automatically your audiences evolve. And it is very sophisticated because you have a lot of AI capabilities and certainly predictive capabilities. So you can say, hey, based on what we know about consumers, I actually want to target people that are about to churn over the next 7 days, over the next months, to hopefully help us alleviate churn. Couple of different types of audience builder rules that we have. The first one, which is probably the easiest, is the rule that is based on the same event. So what does that mean? We want to identify users who added to cart certain items with a total price. So for example, we want to target people that typically buy or want to buy or look at products of the higher value. Then we have within the same session. So conditions must be met within the same session. We want to identify users who maybe viewed 2 or 3 products and then left the website. Maybe they're indecisive. And so you want to change how you approach them because clearly they're interested. They're just trying to find which is the right product for them. And then we have across all sessions where we want to identify users visiting during the last 30 days who perhaps also made a purchase. So you know that they already qualified because they already spent money with you. And now you can sell more to them. Additionally, you have other conditions that are available to you for targeting. Again, all automatically available right from within GA4. We have Google signals that are available if the user is signed in to Google. where we can look at their demographic information, such as age group and interests. We have metrics information, such as purchase revenue. So I want to target people that purchased in the amount of X or Y. Different events, so targeting people that add the product to the shopping cart, or user scoped data, again, the data that we are collecting throughout the user lifetime, such as last purchase data. Hey, maybe it's time for you to buy something again. Quite often works very well with subscriptions, right? When we know that person maybe has skipped one of the past months or decided to pause their subscription, and if they pause their subscription, you can remind them why they should resubscribe or reactivate. And then all of this information, so we are able to build the different cohorts of users. You can configure all of these audiences right within GA4. You don't even need another platform. So all of your data collection and all audience building capabilities are available within GA4. And then you can export those audiences to Google Ads, DV360, SA360. But you need to make sure that Google Signals is explicitly enabled before you're able to do that with Google Ads and DV360. Now we can talk about fueling stronger marketing performance, right? So what did we discuss so far? Well, we discussed two things. Number one was we've talked about data collection. Number two was we've talked about targeting and how we can better target people based on a whole variety of things, based on different types of events. And now we can talk about marketing performance. Now, one of the first people that started working on marketing performance, or started running advertising campaigns, you might not know his name, but I guarantee you know the quote that he became famous for. And the person's name, John Wanamaker, he actually built what is considered to be one of the largest and most modern stores at that time. It is Grand Depot store in Philadelphia. And the store was opened in 1876. Did anyone go there in 1876? Anyone been there personally? And this is the ad that John Wanamaker used to run, where he advertises, I guess, women's products, $3 a pair. I guess inflation, things have changed just a little bit. And the quote that he became famous for, half the money I spend on advertising is wasted, the trouble is I don't know which half. And I guess he said that only because he did not have GA4 in 1876. Boy, if he only had another 100 years to live, maybe we would never have this quote. So when we talked about performance measurement, in GA4, a couple of things that are very important and very actionable. One is predictive audiences, where Google is actually being able to predict, right? So when we've talked about historically, right, the previous versions of analytics, whether it was classic analytics or universal analytics, it was merely to show you what has happened over the past months, over the past quarter, over the past year. But with GA4, based on that information, it's telling you that you can target people that are likely to purchase over the next 7 days, likely maybe to churn over the next 7 days. And gives you some ideas, talking about customer lifetime value. You can predict who might be your top spenders over the next week. And what it actually might tell you is not just who to target, but who you might actually not want to target because you know that they will buy with you organically. A lot of times what happens is we spend money targeting people who probably would buy because of brand equity, because of other aspects, because of just sheer love of the products that your organizations, your companies sell. But nevertheless, we still end up spending a lot of money to generate that transaction. What if we could actually funnel that money and attract new people versus just overpaying for the sale that would have already taken place? And certainly a lot of additional AI capabilities where you can adapt strategies based on what's working or not, proactively plan and optimize your marketing strategies based on what analytics is telling you is going to happen in the future, and provide the right experience to your users based, again, on what their behavior might be on your website. Now let's take a look at the two examples. And with these examples, we are not going to go into too many details because we have a follow-up session that will actually walk you through each case study. But I wanted to frame the conversation of how applicable, how actionable this can be. So the first opportunity that we have is really going beyond just optimizing for things like product revenue or product margins, and really focusing on the value of the customer. Right? Now, if I sell something to Rudy for $10 and I sell something to Will for $10, I can say, well, I should want to spend the same amount of money to generate that $10 sale, right? Because ultimately they are buying $10 worth of products from me. But what if, based on the sale, I know that Rudy over the next 6 months is going to spend $300 with me, and Will is not going to spend anything with me? Who should I target? Probably Rudy, right? Because I know that over the 6 to 9 months, you will be able to generate much more revenue for my business. Way to go, Rudy. That's the type of customers we want. And so our solution is to leverage predictive value-based bidding, where we can bid not just on the product level information, but on customer lifetime value information that either you can do, or up to this point, you had to do manually yourself using your backend data. Now that information is available out of the box within GA4. If you also sell offline, obviously you would want to integrate your offline data to have a much more complete data set. And then look how the information changes. We have customer 1, order value $100, customer 2, order value $300, customer 3, order value $250. And based on that, we might say, well, customer 2 is the more important one because they're spending the most. But that's only telling us half the story. Because if I look at predictive customer lifetime value, this customer is actually the one that is going to generate the most revenue for my business. And so ultimately, what data is giving us is a more complete picture of what is going on. And now, based on this information, I can spend the same amount of money across 3 customers, or rather 3 customer segments, but I want to really prioritize this. So the same amount of money, but it's going to be distributed quite differently based on this information. And later, we'll dive into how this actually works. Now, example 2 is, on your website, I suppose there are many activities or many events that can happen, such as newsletter sign up. Somebody may be looking at or reading a recipe. Somebody may be reading about product information, whatever that might be, right? We have different actions that people can take on that website. And so the question becomes, are those activities that we have on the website all created equal, or are there some activities that we want to prioritize more than others? And so what the solution allows us to do is identify and weight key actions on the website. So maybe we can say that, look, newsletter sign up is really important to us because I know that those who sign up for a newsletter are 2 times as likely to buy something as the next step. So you actually might want to drive people specifically to the newsletter sign up because for whatever reason, it builds trust, it builds connection, and then it helps you generate a sale. And so with that, we would prioritize newsletter signups as a high-value activity that a person can take on your website. And so what we do here is, using Motherlink, we look at email signups, virtual try-ons, filter usage, add to cart. We have different activities. And then we value how much each one is actually worth to your organization. And then based on that, we can look how much is each conversion worth to us. And then based on value-based bidding, how much money we might want to spend to generate a conversion. So the same budget, or perhaps even less budget, can help you accomplish better results, stronger results. Now, one of the questions that we often hear when we do similar events or when we talk one-on-one with many of our partners is, great, well, is my GA4 ready, right? Where do I start? And one of the approaches that we take is GA4 scorecard, where we look at a number of different parameters within how GA4 is put together in your organization. from data collection standpoint, enhanced measurement standpoint, user traffic acquisition, privacy parameters, so how you're using audience and media activation. Right? But then we started to get another type of question as well. This is all good and great, but how can I know right now? Because likely this process is, although very thorough, but tell me right now, is my GA4 ready? And if it is, for what additional use cases it is ready? What can I start doing right now? So what we did is we launched something to help you accomplish exactly that. We launched the GA4 scorecard. Domain name, as the name suggests, GA4scorecard.com, where you can log in through your Google Analytics account. There is a user authentication where you log in with your email and password, the same that you have to your GA4 account. And then what it does, it automatically looks at your GA4 property, the property that you select. Obviously, you can have different properties. And it tells you how well that GA4 property is set up from marketing enablement standpoint, privacy durability standpoint, data collection architecture, and it's completely free. GA4scorecard.com. You can do it on your phone right now. You can do it on your desktop after the event. And it gives you the full scorecard of your GA4 account. And one of the things that we are actively working on that will be available before the end of the month is readiness for advanced modeling use cases, including AI for marketing. So GA4scorecard.com will tell you your GA4 property is ready for these types of advanced use cases, or it's ready for AI for marketing. And here's what you need to do to activate it. Now, if for whatever reason it tells you, look, GA4 property that we looked at maybe does not rank as high as it should be, it will tell you exactly what you need to focus on and how. All completely free, everything that you can do yourself. And if you have any questions about the report, why the results are what they are, let us know, and we can walk you through it. But again, available, completely free, just for all of us to begin leveraging GA4 to its fullest potential. So get your free report if you're interested. And with that, Ash, I will turn this over back to you. Thank you.